The TNA Knockouts World Championship was on the line. Masha Slamovich was defending against Alicia Edwards in a no disqualification match. Ash by Elegance took on one half of Spitfire and Jody Threat. We also had Frankie Kazarian versus Rhino, and Savannah Evans made her in-ring return to TNA. This is your TNA Impact Review. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Wrestling for Life Network, and welcome back to another episode of the TNA Impact Review. I am your host, Ringsider Anthony, and let's get straight into this week's episode of TNA Impact. So we kick off TNA Impact with the TNA Knockouts World Championship match. It was Masha Slamovich versus Alicia Edwards in a no disqualification match. And the history between these two women is kind of thick in 2024. They were the Knockouts Tag Team Champions, and then they lost them to Spitfire. Now, Alicia Edwards was unable to compete in that match, so Tasha Steelz actually stepped up to defend the titles with Masha, and that's when they lost. And Tasha and Alicia turned on Masha Slamovich, and that's kind of where we are with this feud with Masha and Alicia Edwards. Now, Masha stepped aside for a bit so she can face Jordynne Grace at Bound for Glory and win that Knockouts World Championship, and she did. So now we're kind of revisiting that feud with this match on TNA Impact. This match was fun between these two ladies. Masha Slamovich and Alicia Edwards went out there and did the work and got the job done. Alicia Edwards has improved greatly in the ring over the past couple of months. She's a top heel on the mic, and she can garner a lot of heel heat. I'm so proud of Alicia Edwards and how far she has come. This was a phenomenal match, obviously won by Masha Slamovich. After the victory, Tasha Steelz came out and attacked Masha, and then Jordynne Grace came out to save Masha Slamovich from Tasha Steelz and Alicia Edwards. So now at Turning Point, we have a 2 out of 3 falls match, because the winner of this match would go on to face Jordynne Grace at Turning Point. So at Turning Point, there's a 2 out of 3 falls match between Masha Slamovich and Jordynne Grace for the TNA Knockouts World Championship. I'm looking forward to this match coming up on Friday at Turning Point. This will be a great match. I don't think we've seen a 2 out of 3 falls between these two ladies, so I think you should be dialed in for Masha versus Jordynne Grace at Turning Point. So we have more Knockouts action on this week's episode of TNA Impact. Jody Threat went one-on-one with Ash by Elegance. Jody Threat, Danny Luna, Ash, and Heather by Elegance all are in a feud for those TNA Knockouts Tag Team Championships. And I really believe right now Heather and Ash have the upper hand in this feud as we get closer and closer to their big tag team match. Whenever they decide to do it, it could be at Final Resolution, it could be at Turning Point this upcoming Friday. We still got Genesis coming up in January as well. So there's a lot at stake, and there's a lot going on in TNA wrestling right now. But in this match, the Elegances, no official name yet, but Ash by Elegance did pick up the victory against Jody Threat, and I believe this puts them up 2-0 against Spitfire in this feud. I'm not entirely sure, but I do believe it is 2-0 in this feud. And as we charge closer to these big pay-per-views, these big monthly specials, I believe we'll get a match between these two teams. I'm looking forward to it. I think Ash has been doing great things since she came to TNA. You know, she had that big feud with Jordynne Grace. I mean, now she's teaming with Heather by Elegance, and they're charging after those Knockouts Tag Team Championships. I think this is a great story TNA is building here, and I'm looking forward to their first match against Spitfire as a tag team as they continue to charge towards those TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships. Again, not sure when that match is going down, and it might not just be one match, it might be a series of matches, but it will be going down, and I hope that Ash and Heather by Elegance pull out the victory and win those tag team championships. I personally want TNA to put any feud they have on hold for the world title just to give Mike Santana the world title right now. I've been very vocal about how Mike Santana has been doing the dang thing since he returned at Rebellion this past April. And no doubt this week's episode of TNA Impact, he grabbed the mic, gave a passionate promo, talked about how he's proved his doubters wrong, and now he's on the move to get to the TNA World Championship picture. Give Mike Santana that world title. I think 2025 is it for Mike Santana. That's the year when he wins the TNA World title. We still have Joe Hendry on the horizon, and Joe Hendry has been doing great things. And I'm not taking anything away from Joe Hendry, but Mike Santana has the charisma, has the wrestling ability, just has the stature for to be the TNA World Champion. Joe Hendry has that as well, but I'm really liking what Mike Santana is putting down in TNA wrestling right now. I think it's top tier talent, top tier. Anything Mike Santana is doing right now, I feel like it's top tier. And no exception when he gave that passionate promo on the mic this past week on TNA Impact. Frankie Kazarian came out and actually interrupted. They had a very, very strong exchange of words, and now it's going down at Turning Point Mike Santana versus Frankie Kazarian. I'm really looking forward to that match. Any match Mike Santana has really been in since his return to TNA, I've been glued to it. Mike Santana is a huge guy, but can go and run fast like the best of them. I'm super proud of Mike Santana and where he's at right now in TNA wrestling, and I'm hopeful as we charge into 2025 that we get Mike Santana eventually sometime in those 365 days that we get Mike Santana as TNA World Champion. Keep your eye on Mike Santana. He's really climbing up the mountain in TNA, making a name for himself, proving his doubters wrong, trying to do the dang thing as a singles competitor. And I'm looking forward to what TNA has in store for him in 2025. So we go into our third match of the night immediately after that promo battle between Frankie Kazarian and Mike Santana. It's Frankie Kazarian versus Rhino. Frankie Kazarian did pick up the victory. He cheated to win. You know, Frankie Kazarian, he's the top heel in TNA right now. But Frankie Kazarian did pick up the win. This was a great match. The first three matches of TNA this week were very, very good. We had the Knockouts World title match. We had Jody Threat versus Ash by Elegance, and then we had Frankie Kazarian versus Rhino. And all three matches were really good to kind of kick off and set the tone of TNA Impact this week. I'm looking forward to what they have next week. Frankie Kazarian, like I said, did pick up the victory in this match. This was a really good match, and if you haven't seen it, I implore you to pull up the TNA Plus app, and I'm sure it's on YouTube to go see this match. But Frankie Kazarian and Rhino really put on a good showing in this match, and this was probably one of my favorite matches of the night on TNA Impact. I do want to touch on Steve Maclin for a bit. So last week at the end of TNA, we saw Steve Maclin pack his bags, get in his car, and basically to be continued segment. This week we kind of got that to be continued, where it seems like Steve Maclin is in a conflict with himself with his partnership with Eric Young. I really don't want to go into details. I really just want you to see the promo package that they put together because it was really good and kind of broke down of where Steve Maclin is right now in his head. You know, Steve Maclin is really on a losing streak. He's in this feud with Josh Alexander. A lot of things are going on and he's not picking up victories. And I believe at this point, Steve Maclin is kind of conflicted in himself, where it's like Steve Maclin is really a singles competitor. He doesn't do well in tag teams, and he's really had to learn how to put his trust in Eric Young, and that's something he hasn't really done in the past, is putting his trust in another person because he always stands on his own. Steve Maclin is in a place where he's I don't like to use the word tweener, but he's like a heel and a face, but he's really playing the face role in this feud because Josh Alexander is clearly the heel right now in this feud with in between these two. So I don't know where Steve Maclin's head is. And I think these promo packages over the next couple of weeks as they continue will really put in perspective where Steve Maclin's head is. I'm excited to see it. But go check out that promo package with Steve Macklin. It really was intense and it really gave a sense of right now where Steve Macklin is at mentally. So the new leader of the X Division is Moose, and he teamed up with JDC, one of his partners in the system, to take on Laredo Kid and Leon Slater in a tag team match. And this was a phenomenal tag team match. Leon Slater is the future of the X Division. I know it. I'm like 100% sure that he is the future of the X Division, and I'm really excited to see what they do with him in 2025. Laredo Kid in and out of TNA, always puts on phenomenal matches, so nothing less expected from him. Moose, JDC are part of the system. JDC and the system and Moose really running TNA at this point, even though they're not holding the top titles in TNA. But the X Division title is a nice title to hold for Moose. But surprisingly, the system did not pick up the victory. Leon Slater and Laredo Kid did. This was a great match won by those two gentlemen, and I'm happy they got the victory. I don't understand why they're having Moose versus Laredo Kid at Turning Point. I really think it should be Moose versus Leon Slater. That's just me. Leon Slater is the contracted talent in TNA. I think Laredo Kid is too, but I'm not entirely sure. I do know for a fact Leon Slater is the contracted TNA talent. But I feel like that match should be going down at Turning Point because Leon Slater did get the pinfall victory. He pinned JDC, and that's how they won that tag team match. But Laredo Kid versus Moose at Turning Point, no doubt, not putting any slight on that match, is going to bang, and it's going to bang hard. I'm looking forward to that match. Congratulations to Leon Slater and Laredo Kid picking up a huge victory against the X Division champion Moose and JDC. This is another match you should go out of your way and see on YouTube, on the TNA Plus app. All four of these gentlemen delivered. Every time Moose is in the ring, he puts on an excellent match. Leon Slater at his young age is putting on banger matches. You just got to go out of your way and see this match. Moose and JDC versus Laredo Kid and Leon Slater. Before we get to the main event, I do want to talk about Savannah Evans. Savannah Evans made her in-ring return to TNA this week. She faced a woman named Brittany Jade, but they are building Savannah Evans up the way Savannah Evans needs to be built up, and that's as a dominant heel, a dominant woman in that knockouts division. As Jordynne Grace potentially takes her exit from TNA wrestling, you have somebody that could be that powerhouse replacement for Jordynne Grace. Now, Jordynne Grace and Savannah Evans are on two totally different levels. Jordynne Grace is up there with the top tier talent. You can put her in the same conversation as Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair and things of that sort. Savannah Evans is still up and coming, and it's really because of how she was booked under Scott D'Amore. She was booked as a bodyguard, but treated as like not a bodyguard. But now I think they have to rework Savannah Evans' character and really make her seem like a powerhouse in the knockouts division. And I think they're really doing that. So I'm excited to see what Savannah Evans does. She did obviously pick up the victory over Brittany Jade in convincing fashion. And she actually, for the first time in a very long time, since I've been really watching TNA and Impact Wrestling when it was Impact Wrestling, she really garnered a reaction from the crowd, which I was so happy about. When she came out, she actually got some cheers. When she won, she actually got some cheers. So this is great for Savannah Evans. I know she's a heel and she's supposed to get booed, but the crowd is kind of behind her at this point, and I believe TNA can continue to pick up the momentum with Savannah Evans. 2025 could be the year when we get like a Masha versus Savannah Evans for the Knockouts World title. I'm just saying they just have to stay on this path with Savannah Evans and really make her a dominant knockout in that knockouts division. And I hope they continue to do that. We are at the main event of TNA Impact this week. We had a huge six-man tag team match. The Hardys teamed up with Ace Austin to take on Trent Seven, Alex Hammerstone, and Jake Something. This was a phenomenal six-man tag team match to main event TNA Impact. I do want to touch on that Jeff Hardy and Matt Hardy are doing wonderful things in TNA. They look so happy in TNA. Jeff Hardy is able to kind of give his free expressions in TNA. They let Jeff Hardy kind of be Jeff Hardy in TNA. Matt Hardy looks like he is at home in TNA wrestling, and I know WWE is their home, but they seem very happy right now in TNA wrestling, and I love that for them. Ace Austin is kind of in a place where he doesn't have his tag team partner Chris Bay beside him. Chris Bay was severely injured at the Bound for Glory, the day after Bound for Glory tapings for TNA Impact. So I think we'll soon see Ace Austin really kind of be in that X Division scene again because he doesn't have his tag team partner in Chris Bay. Trent Seven just really turned on Mike Bailey, who was no longer with TNA Wrestling, by the way. And Trent Seven has his teeth right now into this big, huge heel role. And Jake Something and Alex Hammerstone are actually somewhat of a tag team in TNA. So all these six gentlemen are doing something really good in TNA right now, and I'm loving it. But yeah, this was a great six-man tag team match, and one. It was not won by the Hardys in their home kind of area in North Carolina. It was won by Trent Seven, Jake Something, and Alex Hammerstone. But that main event banged. The entire episode of TNA Impact banged. I don't understand how TNA can deliver top tier episodes each and every week, but they do it. They do it and they do it effortlessly. I feel like honestly, TNA is the most consistent wrestling show on television. Each week delivers. I want to say out of all of the episodes so far of TNA Impact this year, there might have been two or three that were kind of downers, but all the rest of them top tier. TNA is really doing the dang thing, and I hope they continue to do this in 2025. After the match, Hammerstone, Seven, and Something, they all did attack the Hardys and Ace Austin. And then the Rascals and Kushida came out to kind of save the Hardys and Ace Austin from the attack from those three gentlemen. That is all because at Turning Point, there is another six-person tag team match where the Hardys continue their partnership with Ace Austin to take on the Rascals and Kushida. That should be a good match at Turning Point. That is how we end TNA Impact this week. We end TNA Impact with that huge six-man tag team match. So next week, there is a Thanksgiving episode of TNA Impact where they're showing a lot of never before seen matches that have happened in 2024 in TNA. So that's going to be great. So technically, this week's episode of TNA Impact was the go home show for Turning Point, which is next Friday, November 29th. So tune in to the channel. We'll be covering Turning Point. Tune in to Turning Point because I'm sure it's going to be a great TNA special on the TNA Plus app. Before I leave you guys today, I will run down all the matches that have been announced for Turning Point next Friday, November 29th. I'm looking forward to it. So here are the matches so far. Moose will be defending the TNA X Division Championship against Laredo Kid. Mike Santana will be going one-on-one with Frankie Kazarian. And then we have the Thanksgiving Turkey Bowl match. Joe Hendry, Eric Young, Alex Hammerstone, PCO, Brian Myers, and John Schuyler are all in this match. We have a huge six-man tag team match. The Hardys teaming up with Ace Austin to take on the Rascals and Kushida. Then we have a huge no disqualification match. Josh Alexander will be taking on Steve Macklin. And then the TNA Knockouts World Championship will be on the line in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Masha Slamovich will be defending against Jordan Grace. And finally, Nick Nemeth will be defending the TNA World Championship against Eddie Edwards. So all of those matches are going down next week at Turning Point. Again, tune into the channel for Turning Point. It is going to be a phenomenal show. All right, guys, that is it for the TNA Impact review this week. I will be back next week talking all things Turning Point and the fallout of Turning Point, everything that went down at Turning Point. I will be talking about that next week. If you are watching on YouTube, thank you. If you are watching on any of the podcasting platforms, I thank you as well. This has been another episode of the TNA Impact review, and I have been your host, Ringsider Anthony. I will see you in the next one.